angliščino, samo da predstavim. Today with us we have Inguna Audere, let's say correctly, and Michaela Rogersa, international jazz artists, professors, internationally active in many fields regarding collaborative working in art, in education, and I think they have many interesting things to tell us about education, about their art, about their projects, and also about the IRMA Collaborative, which home it is in Riga, but it's also spreading through the world. So welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. It's our first time in Lyon, and so it's particularly great. You know, I've known Tanya for quite a while. She was just in upstate New York, and I was showing her around Rochester Institute of Technology, Alfred University, and the Corning Museum of Glass. That's my area. Inguna is originally from and still living in Riga, Latvia, and that's where our studio is. And IRMA Collaborative, which we consider, we have our own kind of independent and individual approaches to making art. And I would say we're both considering ourselves broad-based artists. Although we have a focus on glass, we work with a lot of different mediums. And so we're 3 years old now. As IRMA Collaborative. And it started out with Inguna had kind of gotten her own studio right here. Yeah, perfect. In a very interesting area of Riga called Reason Homes. It's a little sketchy, a little edgy kind of area, which we kind of like. And then we expanded our studio, and we actually have a window gallery now. But Inguna had a nonprofit organization, but it hadn't been dormant, kind of sleeping for many years. And we have decided to kind of reinvigorate that because outside of our own projects, we have projects that are curatorial. We've curated exhibitions in China and also in Riga and various different countries. And we also have our creative work, and then there's educational projects like the IMTIS project, which we are looking forward to working with you all here. So we didn't start out to have a window gallery, but we had this window, and we noticed that people walking by on the street had really started to kind of look in the window when we were just putting little things in there, not necessarily for exhibition, but just kind of placing things there. I spent the better part of about 3 months making booklets. We have a printing press, and we do this process called lithography, which you can use photographic sandblast to resist, or direct etching or cutting on glass plates, and then run it through a press with paper on top. And then I really think paper has the same kind of phenomenon associated with it that you would have associated with glass. And this really interests me because you can print on the front of paper and on the back, and then I use paraffin or wax, and that it enhances the transparency. And then these booklets, we just decided to exhibit them in the window before it was actually the window for our gallery. And now this exhibition is in Lilaste by the sea. We took them all to a forest there and hung them around trees. And they've been there for a year now. But I like the idea of having an exhibit that somebody might just happen upon. Not for sales or not in a proper museum or anything like that. But and then also I anticipate that insects and birds, because it's dipped in beeswax, I think it would be quite attractive to certain creatures and how they might change the works. Next was we formalized announced this. We had written a grant. We got support from the Riga City Council, and this is Kati Kirsner's from Estonia, and she did this wonderful piece. These are. It's also associated with a grant that we give out. We have we give out 2 grants each year at 1,400 euros each to artists in the Baltic area. So we would, part of our organization is, as much as we can't do a lot, but we try to do some philanthropic kinds of endeavors to help out artists in the region. And Kati made these wonderful plate glass, and then she wired together all the sections, and inside these hands are all kinds of found objects and things. And then she went on, this was a prototype that she went on to make, it's about, I think one of the hands were as large as this whole screen, and she had a couple of them in the exhibition. Do you want to talk about Armand's?
Yeah, Armand's answer is my student. He graduated bachelor program, and his previous education is photographer. And he really greatly adapted to glass and used this old type of making photography on glass. And then he made installation, and also got into Stanislav Benski art exhibition. So yeah, his installation through some.
Yeah, what's phenomenal about this piece that I really love, because I could see it, I'm sometimes invited to do be a visiting critic at the Academy there in Riga. And what he had done is he had taken all these photographs of horizons, and then he lined them all up into one continual horizon from all these different horizons. That's really a wonderful idea. No, we missed one. No, that's you. Yeah, you should.
Yeah, then the next exhibition was my turn to make, and that was about interest in seahorse as a small sea animal, and I made this installation according to. But I had wrong actually, because if to seriously say that at that time we didn't have access to studios, so I just combined things which I had around and made this installation, which actually is very well interactive with public, because there is mirror involved, and so yeah.
The seahorse's cast collapsed.
Julia Potekal is a Lithuanian artist. She also calls her as a contemporary artist because she uses not only glass in her artwork. And this is like a light object on the thematics of forest and human and nature's connection. She tried to emphasize this. The title of artwork was Tree of Destruction and Tree for Creation.
This is work of Jens Pfeiffer. He's the head of the glass program at the Rietveld Academy in Amsterdam. And he was just in Riga and had just set up this exhibition. And what's it called? Cloud Atlas 2 is the title of this. And what we do is we put the QR code also in the window so that people passing by on the street, because the window is a pretty limited exhibition space, but they can tune into this QR code and go to the artists' websites. and we'll kind of move along here a little bit faster. One of the exhibitions we curated was at the Maja Gallery in Shanghai, and international. They have they call it eyeglass, international glass, and
that was interesting. It happened during COVID, and
yeah.
we didn't meet each other. We only organized this remote by messenger, phone calls, and emails, and yeah, so that was quite a bit new experience.
Okay, another curatorial project. I think this one we're quite proud of. I remember, for some kind of context, and you and I go back 31 years. We first met at a conference in Lviv in Ukraine. We have a lot of friends there that we're very concerned about. So over the years, we worked on several different projects. I remember one time we were walking through Old Town, and Inguna said, it would be so great to have an exhibition at Regis Beers someday, because it really is one of the most beautiful exhibition halls, really anywhere in the world, but certainly in Riga. And, it was called the Voice of Glass Collaborative. The Voice of Glass exhibitions, how many were there total? 3 of them that Inguna had curated and then began to involve other people like me in helping out with that. And we have a movie here.
Maybe right now you want to show what at the end.
Yeah, okay. At the end, then we'll show it. Yeah, we have a video tour of that exhibition that we'd like to show you. So in terms of our creative work, this was many of Inguna's and my collaborative projects start out with conversation. Sitting at a table, having some coffee, talking about art, talking about what we might want to do, and then interpreting that into an artwork. It seems to be a springboard for creativity for us. And here we had 2 jackets made by another collaborator in charge of textile design at the Academy. And and we had, I don't know how many meters of plate glass. It was quite a large installation that we had lifted up several centimeters off the floor. And then we made plate glass boats and that were kind of floating around on top of that glass. This exhibition was supposed to start in December and couldn't actually get in the museum until February because of COVID. And actually, when the exhibition opened, people could only see it through the window, and they had QR codes. But we improvised. It actually allowed us to do all kinds of things. We did a performative action with mirrors projecting light throughout that space and actually making a kind of light installation over this fireplace of Hermes. And Hermes is the Greek god of messenger to the gods, which is kind of a nice metaphor. And finally it did open to the public, but only for like a month or 2.
Yes.
Yeah. But we had artists involved from all over the world, countries, as you'll see in the video we'll show you. This is from the IFTIS project that we taught at the Shanghai Institute of Visual Art in China. And on their campus, they had moved this incredibly beautiful old traditional building. And we used that as a site for our performative action, but then also for the students. This is a water lens, which we'll show you. I actually brought it along.
Jackets also?
What?
Jackets.
Oh, and the jackets too, we brought along
Dresses.
with us. Yeah. And then there was this arts festival somewhere out in the country, and we were invited to do something. So with the faculty there and students from Shanghai, we had done these large drawings out in the middle of a rice field. This is from a project in Scotland. There's a glass entity called Northlands Creative. Have you ever heard of it? Any of you? It's you should keep an eye out for it because they have interesting things going on there. It's so far up northeast in Scotland that you go any further, you hit the Orkney Islands. It's a very wild and kind of incredibly beautiful place in the world. And we were interpreting a poem called Painting the Blue Jar by Norman McCrae, a Scottish poet. And Inguna, we had arranged ahead of time for them to sink these poles into the ground. And Inguna had painted on fiberglass sheets. And I had made fused glass text. And that's how it looked before we started to set it on fire. When you take wax and you start to burn it, and then you throw water on it, it kind of explodes. And we had trouble getting the fire started, but the crowd, because it's really windy up there, and the crowd kind of gathered around us and helped to get it started. Another project is called Abandoned House. This happened, we were having a conversation, and I think I was just reading Bachelar's Poetics of Space, which you should all read. It's a really incredible book about architecture and its metaphorical associations. And I told Inguna, I said, I work a lot with found objects. And I said, I'd really like to engrave the windows of an abandoned house. Windows are kind of, our eyes are kind of windows to our souls. And so we had several people involved. Inguna was doing her bit with fiberglass and wax and setting it on fire, and then it was exploding when she threw water on it. There I am engraving the glass windows. And I was engraving in Latvia because this is out in the country. And I was aware that local people walking by, which was kind of interesting because they kind of, it's kind of like they didn't want to pay too much attention, but they really were incredibly curious, like what these crazy people were doing. So I didn't want to be obscure with a foreign language, but I wanted to be so the people there could read it and get something about it. And the text referred to the natural surrounding of the area where they lived. And then I was also engraving plants and flowers and things like that as well. There was a Japanese artist, Kazushi Nakata, who was taught at ALUO University in Finland. He was involved. He was painting the building entirely white. We had Imanis Kikulas, who is doing photography. He had us up at 3 in the morning with like 5-meter poles holding lights, and he was experimenting with a pinhole camera. And so we're just kind of interested in what it's like when you get artists together, even without any particular plan, to work on something. And while we were each kind of doing our own thing as a total project, there was somehow some kind of unity to it. We actually brought these. These are drawing instruments. You can, it's kind of, I don't know if it's a prototype or what, but at the bottom there's a wick, and you can fill these tubes with colored ink and draw with them.
We brought shoes.
As glass artists, you know what like a 80 grit diamond pad might be. We laminated those onto our shoes. Inguna has a kind of long history. I think from the age of 16 was involved, has been involved, still involved with the traditional Latvian dance troupe. And she had even got me involved in that for a while, which is one of the most frightening things, most challenging things I've ever done in my life. And anybody who knows me would know that that's kind of the least likely thing I would do. But we were somehow inspired to laminate the diamond pads onto the shoes, and then in Lviv, at the symposium there in front of the furnace, we laid down plate glass and danced with it. We could only take it so far. The idea was to rub some kind of colored paint or ink into that and then actually present it almost like a painting on the wall. This was a piece of glass that we had cut for the table in our studio, and had 4 drill holes in it, and had just, this is one of the first things we had done. So we were just interested in the way these candles were melting, and we're taking videos of that, and just starting to kind of experiment with the glass's ability to make light projections onto the ceiling and onto the wall. This project is, we had a water jet cut all the countries we'd been in, and some kind of idea about borderless kinds of imaginary worlds. And I'm in the United States often, most of the time. Inguna's in Riga, and we sometimes have projects. We had a red rope project. You get a lot of red rope, I got a lot of red rope, I'll do something here, you do something there, and we'll compare. It's a kind of collaboration by remote. So there's a large wooden crow that I had. In my little village, there's a guy who does architectural kinds of renovations, and he has a 3D scanner, and he also has lathes. And I took in a crow. It's a crow that they use for target practice, actually, an antique one. And he scanned it, and then he made one this big for me, and this big, and this big. And as a sculptor, it's kind of a great thing to. I'm sorry.
To come back, are you involved in projects my grandchildren? They were so excited to play with red ropes nearby seaside. And also, Michael forgot to say that we made from fiberglass clothes. So it's to see on the left. And children were gladly playing in the beach. And what I think is interesting that the environment is totally different. As a seaside, it's quite sandy, and so there's little green, more pine trees that Michael's space is very green and meadows are around. So that was very interesting to compare how that all works in different environments.
These are, Inguna works in her own work with a photographic process. Maybe you could talk a little bit about in your own work. She'll talk about that process. These are photographic images that are fused onto glass, and it's 9 meters.
3 meters. No, 1 to 1 meter.
Oh, yeah, 3 meters.
Yeah.
3 meters long. Yeah, and 1 meter high. And another such work. So these works are basically a lot of the performative, collaborative things we do. We then make collages in terms of images, almost using those events or that art making as a way of harvesting imagery and then recycling it back into artwork. Okay. And then this is the first of the impetus project. which impetus just means, like if you're going to wake up in the morning, you're going to get out of bed. You need the impetus to get out of bed, right? To make any kind of artwork, you have to have, there's got to be some spark. What's that? What motivates anybody to do anything, really? It requires an impetus. And Inguna had this idea to combine at the Academy painting, sculpture, and performance. So this was the first time, and she invited me to participate. And we had, you want to talk about the...
We had students from Italy, from Denmark, Norway, and each of them came with their own project, with their own way how they understand this combining of painting, sculpture, and performative activities. I would say performance sounds very serious, it's not that. And the lady in the black ring, she is from Italy, and her idea was again to show us how nature and human beings are interconnected. Yeah. So she brought this earth and this ring, and that was her performance, and documentation of that is interesting and perhaps even more important than this activity.
Some students chose to work together, and other students chose to do things on their own. And then next we were invited to teach this course in Lithuania, and really fascinating, just the difference in kind of from one country to another.
Yes, I like to play with paint very well.
Yeah, it made what happened at the Academy.
Yeah.
We could look tame.
Yes. Yeah.
And then we also taught this course at the Osaka University of Art in Japan. I spent 11 years teaching in Japan at IHE University of Education. It was my first teaching job. And then I was invited back several times to teach when I was on sabbatical. And this project, Inguna was along for this. And we gave the assignment for them all to make blown glass drawing instruments. And then everybody had a chance to do mark making. And then you can see on this image on your right, you can make I don't know if you can see very well, but the instruments that they use for making the marks are hanging there. And that's just kind of an impromptu kind of installation. But you have the actual activity, which is kind of performative, and then you have the resulting work, which is an artifact, and could be made into any number of things. And the last course we taught was at the Shanghai Institute of Visual Art. And this is that beautiful old building, traditional building, where we decided to use. And had this upstairs area with a balcony. And this is some of the students' work. And you can see also, we gave them the assignment of making instruments for drawing. And then they covered the tables downstairs with paper, and they all drew with them, and then they were laying on the drawings and making more marks. And,
that happened when we went away, and we left them alone, since they really...
Yeah.
They felt that no professors around, and that was good.
Yeah. And I think that's it. Next, the movie. Yeah, we wanted to show you, it's, how long is it? Just a couple of minutes. Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we ask for your patience, but
Kakšne zvočnike boš kakati?
Zvočnik posebej mogoče.
So as many of the people participating, we had the idea to have these artists from around the world come and participate in the seminar, but because of COVID, they couldn't come. So we actually had a huge projection inside the museum, and they could all meet with their different time zones at one time. We could talk to each other and show them and at least give them this video tour. And
the main idea was to make collaborative art for the artists and ask them to find a collaborator and to make a collaborative activity. And what was interesting that we found out there are various levels of collaboration, but how artists, what they understand is that. And
Actually worked with a village in India where they're known for making traditional glass bangles, and then she kind of incorporated that into her topographical kind of table installation. And as curators, the next piece you'll see, I believe. Yeah, Estonian. So this is the first time we as curators had scuba dived to see an art exhibition, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. I have to panic at that. It's a thing that I cannot do. Really things to be very
It's actually like using the head of this lake as you go from one exhibition kind of to the next, one installation to the next.
These photos are just a day before when they find out that they will be
And in each case, these artists that we invited were given the task of collaborating with other entities, scientists or musicians or other artists. William Yoon teaches with Jack Wax at Virginia Commonwealth University.
the idea of this work is also about how one can see other persons in dimension.
is a challenge to do something with that strong geometric floor. That's why we upraise the glass. This is Carlos's work is pretty interesting, and I really have to mention one of the Inguna students who's an avid skateboarder, and he skateboards. One of his friends is supported by Red Bull, and he wanted to make front of the. He finally did it, but he got turned down several times. But he finally made a ramp, and it was accepted by the National Museum, right, which is right next to the Art Academy.
Yeah, he was very
And he's actually one of the recipients of our last grants. He'll also do something in our window gallery.
social bubble. Not too long.
It's not that much longer. This is Soja Zhang, who's a professor at the China Central Academy of Fine Art in Beijing. And I had at RIT, one of my first graduate students from China was from that school. And her name is Mengdu, but we call her Mo. And I asked Mo, I said, why don't we have a great relationship with a good school in China? And she says, oh, my professor's coming with 30 of his students in 2 weeks, and planning to go to different universities. I said, well, invite them all here, and we'll do collaborative works, different teams, and we went bowling together, and anyway, they were there for a month, and it kind of, a lot came from all that. Soji invited us to China several times, and
Exactly our work is about interaction between visitor and her work, sensors, somewhere, and object on when people came into this dark room, and there's more people there in dark room, brighter as this new object.
phosphorescent lights. And just 2 more projects. This is Julie's work. She worked with a floral group, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm afraid to touch it. Oh, yeah, sorry. Okay, so Pilchuck Glass School, it's in Seattle, and it's one of the better known places for summer courses. Dale Chihuly started it. It has its roots in the beginning of the studio glass movement in the United States, and if you maybe want to be careful where you try this, but that's me. And if you take a coat hanger and you bend it so you have a handle, you come down, you take steel wool, and you kind of clamp it in there, and you light it, you can do this. And that was just for fun. This is my home in upstate New York. Kind of contemporary design, but it's actually quite an old house now. It's my studio, which I had built kind of trying to, in the same kind of vein as the house. When I'm not in my studio, I spend a lot of time at the lake, and I really love the water, love the lake. I love boating. And just to give you an idea of my life there in the States, I kept bees for a while, and the image here is at the end of the season, the harvest season. I write them poetry, and then I dip it in beeswax, and then I put it in a hive, and I thank them, and then they build around that, and I take videos of that. But a lot of my artwork is, I'd say it comes from this idea of rituals that sustain us, because my parents, I'm the youngest, but my parents, who are now long gone, but they both went through the Depression era in the United States, and we had no money. There was no money. If you wanted food, I was taught to hunt and to fish as a survival technique, and we had huge gardens, and we had bees for the honey. And so I always wanted to do that. By the time I came old enough, nobody was keeping bees anymore in my family. My older brothers and sisters all moved away, and my grandpa got older. But here's some of the artwork. It's blown glass, cast glass, and then there's some sewn cloth in there as well. My wife is a textile artist, and sometimes she gets talked into making things for me. The blown glass, this piece is about so big, and took a mold off a doll shape, and when it was in wax, I used this wax starter like paper that you put in hives and attach that to the figure. And actually, in this case, a lot of times I do direct engraving. In this particular case, all these bees were little sandblast photograph resists. This is direct drawing with a little Dremel, and there's the string that kind of goes to a key. And I think with my work, there's narrative, but it's not a linear narrative. It's not the way I think. I think more like in terms of constellations of thoughts. So there's all these different things in our lives that affect us. And then you think they're not related, but they somehow are. This piece was called A Faithful Likeness. The rabbit's holding a needle. This piece I did in residency. The blown glass was done in a residency at the Tacoma Museum of Glass. And I worked with a huge team. And these barometers are huge. And I picked the barometer shape because I knew it to be in terms of glass blowing. one of the most challenging things for a glass blower to do. And I worked with a MacArthur Award-winning poet and another poet who just got a Pulitzer Prize, Forrest Gander and C.D. Wright. And they came to my studio and they wrote poetry based on the barometers that they liked a lot. And one poem was called Storm and Stress. I then engraved their text onto my barometers. And on that shelf was paper, which Forrest wrote his poem in water-based ink. And underneath is an Arduino box and speakers. And the Arduino box, what it did, that involved computer kind of genius and sound composer, found sound composer artist in Taipei, Taiwan, friends of mine, that made a tonal composition that changed in real time based on barometric pressure. And so it's called Spillforth. And this was showed at the Cohen Gallery in Providence, Rhode Island, at Brown University, the day after a hurricane hit. And the gallery director got a call because I warned them, but it was really spilling forth. And the idea was that I knew it would alter the text below. And for me, it has something to do with the fragility of human voice. In America now, there's talk of they're actually banning books at school, which really disturbs me. And we all know how voices can be silenced. These pieces are just, I write down kind of memories, and then, but they're mine. And then I kind of submit them to this natural process where it's then kind of somehow changed or altered. I cast work in bronze. I'll go a little bit quicker, but I just wanted to mention that this work is some of my first castings. And the shapes you see on the inside are negative space. So it would have been a solid piece of plaster silica that I drilled a hole through. And then later, when taking that plaster silica out, you get that negative shape, which looks positive through the glass. And I showed this because it was 37, 39 years ago that I made these. And these were 32 years ago. And I'm showing them to you because I've done a lot of work that's figurative narrative. And most people know me for figurative narrative work. But the work I'm doing now is like this. It's large work with platonic solid objects inside that are negative space. And as you get older, it's harder and harder to explain yourself. Really. It's just, as an artist, I've done so many different kinds of work, and still do at any one time, maybe going in several different directions. But this is the latest work, and which actually relates to the work I was doing about 30, 40 years ago, and that's what I showed you. These pieces will be in the Bulgarian biennial. So the interior kind of phenomenon is created by the size of the particles you put into the mold around these cores. So there's fine, medium, and coarse grit, and chunks, larger chunks. And that kind of, I can predict exactly how that'll work, but here you can kind of see a little bit how the glass is stacked into the mold, and then how it melts together. And then, the figurative narrative work, which is incredibly different. This is like before, say, about 10 years ago, probably 15 to 10 years ago. So I take molds off of objects and then put them together. These are works of mine that are in the Corning Museum. The display case came from the Harvard Natural History Museum, and it housed the Balashka marine and botanical specimens, which are incredible. It's called the Ware Collection, W-A-R-E. And you should look that up. Beautiful, incredibly. They were used by all museums around the world to kind of illustrate natural kinds of animals and figures. I engraved bee imagery around it, kind of bee anatomy, and then my wife had made a hexagonal quilt on the inside, and then Inguna's brother-in-law made the little silver bees for real bees, that kind of set on the inside of the case. And what you can't see so well, but you can hear, is that the light, strong overhead light, had kind of projected shadow images onto the quilt. And that's something I really liked, is this, you could put your hand over that, and the shadow images would appear, kind of disappear. So, in essence, this case was not really housing objects so much as kind of light phenomena. A rather large installation, taken off of antique picture frames with the curved glass, making a rubber mold, and then casting them in glass and setting them in a brass bezel, much like a stone is set into a ring. And I engraved on them. They were open-face molds, so the glass is polished. And it's kind of nice to be able to engrave on that. Polish the other side. Rub black ink into that to get it to pop a little bit. Set it into the brass, and you get this kind of golden glow to it. This piece is called Neruda. I like the poetry of Borges, and I like the poetry of Neruda very, very much. And this was text from his book of poems called ALUO uho. And so it had to do with the sea, all that. And the cloth is sewn from word to word, and each thread just goes from one word to the other. This is called the Keeper's Lament. Crows wrapped in this beeswax pattern, cast in glass. I won't go into the meaning too much, but it was kind of an environmental statement there in the United States anyway, because of, here I am going into it, I said I wouldn't, but because of insecticides, you know, it's been somewhat devastating to the population of bees. This really concerns all of us. If there's no longer any bees, then we don't eat necessarily, because we rely on them for to get things going in the plant world. And then I do at the lake, mostly in the summer, because I don't want to be in the studio too much, but I still want to be involved in creative activity. I do what I call performative sketches. I'm not really a performance artist, that's why I call them sketches. Anyway, these are actually glass pieces floating. I took their actually large kind of cardboard letters, and then I used polymer medium and coated them many times, so I sealed it. And then I used glass frit, coarse, medium, and fine frit, which gave it a little bit, it's very slight, but it gives it a little bit of a luminous quality, and involved a little more work than you might think, because to keep them from floating far out into the lake and kind of getting boaters mad at me, and that I had each one is tied with fishing line and rocks to weight them down so they can only float so far. These are blown glass pieces that, they're not blown actually, they were quite long, but you gather on the punty, a solid bit, somebody brings a bit, you flatten it, somebody brings another bit, and I just keep building it. And I kind of like that building the process is similar to the way wasps build nests. And I always liked craft. That is the way like spiders build webs and bees build their things. Yeah. So interacting with blown glass pieces that I've made. This particular piece has, well, there's the glass letters before I decided that I thought they could float. I have a lot of found objects, so I have actually a collection of just about everything. Old typewriters, and I took wax paper, quite long, and I put an accelerant on it, and I set it on fire and started typing. This piece is called Late Listening. More pyrotechnics. Actually, the cottage next to mine, my neighbors rented out, so I get a lot of curious looks from people who are renting. Hey, what are you doing? But that's basically it in a nutshell. There's so much more, but I think there's only so much time. So you can do this.
Our language is one of the alive languages, so one of the oldest ones. And as I this morning found out, I think we also have Slovenian language, it has the same roots as our And yesterday was our state celebration of independence, getting back independence, and these are photos from performance devoted to 100 years of Latvia. And also my artwork was involved in that activity, and I made a big ball as a universe and to think that how to escape the war. Nails.
Yeah.
Made by
Can I add to this a little bit? Because what's so cool about their glass program is they have this stenographer called Victor's. And he's very expressive, and he's worked with us in the past. But this was his project called Cafe Spleen. And it was at the Apparatus Museum, which is something that I love, because in America we just have lots of statues of like tanks and soldiers and stuff like that. And in Riga, they have statues of poets everywhere. In the Apparatus Museum, the poets were also involved with politics, and what Victor's did was, this whole Cafe Spleen was based on World War I. So I had me reading books like this thick about it. But the wall behind Inguna's beautiful globe piece was backlit. And then there were cast glass nails that were shot through. So that's, this whole project had actors, singers, and stage things happening. And
also, burning of clothes made from fiberglass clothes, and the idea is that spirit is strong, so never burns, and make it burn. Try to, no, yeah, it's about aggressivity too, yeah, but still, so it's alive. Nice. Yeah, so experience in art is mostly linked to a bigger or smaller activities in community. Yeah, for me it feels better to work in group, and maybe it is because, yes, I am a pole dancer from my young teen years, and we have song and dance festival which will happen in July too.
It's like 40,000 dancers.
And singers coming together, and that's a really big event, and really emotional, and I think it's more for participants than for those who visit. And so there is one for Latvian costumes, there is another costumes, and we were visiting Bavaria. Also, I think why I like collaborative work and the collaborative aspect is because I'm only a child in my family, and I spent like lonely summers, and had a lot of time to think and observe nature. And so, also I have a big family, two daughters, one son, and 3 grandchildren, and also I was in English husbands of my daughters.
Son-in-law.
Yeah. And in the middle is my mother, and so that is very much source of inspiration for art I'm doing, because I'm very involved in all their lives. Also, my activities is cycling, and sometimes we come to dance for Austria or skiing, and in Latvia we do boating. It's quite rough and wild, and it's nice to spend 4 days in a wild nature and then come back to one city. It's like, oh, and feel good. We have UL, this is the longest day and shortest night, which is celebrated in Latvia. We have state holidays, and as we have our summer house nearby sea, we always make a fireplace and go to sleep. With my husband and child, do ritual when it's cold. And about my artwork, yeah, it's interesting is that my graduation was about that in 1993, it's installation based on dance methodics. So yeah, that's a special aspect how one learn dancing. They have drawings how couples, pairs, and ladies or men how to move. Also, my experiences in ceramics, and a lot of time spent in the field, being as a designer for blown glass objects and blown glass. Yeah, some experiments that are, and 3 meters long installation. And I was searching for not very difficult technical solutions in my artwork, because I cannot do this. But that was a nice way to find out that from many strings make a large installation. And there is a combination of plastic, silicone, and glass, and this is my intention was to fool this viewer that can't say is it glass or is it not. And also it is a good way how to quickly and how design and make large installations. That's one answer. And my experience is in stained glass panel making too. Also restoration, that's my first craft I learned in glass, because Latvia is very connected with stained glass craftsmanship, and we have many art nouveau stained glass panels which should be restored, and still the customers are interested in kind of art. So I have been head of department of glass art for 12 years. Also before that I founded my first non-profit organization called Glass Art and Study Center, which still is alive and active in one of the museums in Riga. And the next was this IRMA Collaborative non-profit organization, because that's always I like to organize and to do things for public, and that's why also it was kind of easy to involve art academy and glass programs, students in different art projects. And also obtained a Doctor of Arts degree. That was a huge thing. 5 years after that I couldn't write anything. I just hate any writing. That's already over. So there are some works which are appreciated by the last review. In time, also we made students a big installation in our academy. That's good. These are details. Students. That was our first time to do project together, and it always is a bit, I don't know what you need, but always the results are good, better even than one expected. Oh yeah, here is another collaborative project on steklu, where scenographer Victor was involved, and Michaela Rogersa was involved, and also apparatus museum people, and we made an exhibition in Gotland's art gallery. At that time I did research on how to use fiberglass in art.
Stefan Wilson.
Yeah. Inguna Audere also was involved. She read poetry in Latvian poets, poetry in Latvian and also in Swedish language.
My grandmother actually came from Gotland area, so it's interesting to visit.
And after that, with Michael decided to make this application for a glass museum competition for Potekal. Yeah. So this is also based on Stefan novel, and it's called Anarchist Diary. Another activities are in Tallinn, in abandoned factory. Now it's Tallinn Art Academy's building. So I did performance, just what I can do. So it's like this light and paper.
What was the temperature?
-26. And then it's spray, black spray, tried to make this floating. And just so on that. And
Can you go back to that image? Is that your breath that's causing that because of the cold?
yeah, also the hole in her wall and the light was coming. The rest, yeah, because it was cold.
Okay.
No, but unexpectedly, I think it's a good image.
Yeah.
Another collaborative work is my dance group. So this 3 to 3 meters square on a ground, and dancers kind of individualistic movement inhabited this, and at the end they made a sign. That all was involved in choreography, that's called wax. And then put wax on their feet, made boots. That's originally each dancer's size. Boots made in wax. That's the end. The outward looks like. So blue jar we already see. So mirroring and mirrors, these are one of my interests, and also sometimes I use objects. Particularly this glass panel was about to throw out from church, and I took them and tried to give a new life, mirror, and this holographic imaging. Water, sea, mirrors, and reflections, all this is how artwork comes out from. Children appreciate sketches, and I allow them to play with this because then something new always can happen. And this also is a mirror, and I scratch out. Practical things. Yeah. This is process of mirroring. Devotion to my grandmother. Models from original mirror, which I use also as photography print on glass, and then that's about how it is to see or not to see, or sometimes I want to see and I cannot, I don't see. It's about this to see or to be able to see or feel, or maybe you look in a mirror and can't see anything, and somewhere beside that is the real deal. That's why this photograph, the photography of mirror is printed on the glass, and this mirroring is done in a silvering. I use natural elements to create objects, models, mostly models. This is appreciated and also will be displayed on Bulgarian glass diagram. But the process of making was the most interesting. I took shape from my hand with paraffin. Also, I made a dress. This not yet in glass, but one day maybe. Yeah. Also, fiberglass cloth. That was very, I'm kind of interested in using this material because it is made in Latvia. It's a nice thing also. And how it looks like after burning. And this piece is how this hot glass and make drawing on this fiberglass cloth. This color is made by ink. For printers, ink, because that was only which this fiberglass takes others. Yeah, this is that. And if you want, but you must yeah, and then I always do different textiles and this is a process of thinking. It's also kind of very most interesting because they can move them and so these also are photo prints on glass and engraving, and this artwork was displayed on Kanazawa.
Kanazawa, Japan. If you, I don't know if you know about that exhibition. Sorry, every year is it, or every other year?
Every 3 years.
What?
It's every 3 years.
Every 2 years they have a competition. Yeah.
I think every 2.
Yeah. You should enter.
And that is a reference of all communication. There is some make photo print and title Big Longing. And this is self-portrait. It's also engraving, photo print, and also what I like to do is to Photoshop things, my photographs. Which I document and I Photoshop them and then another is these, again, fiberglass cloth and epoxy resin, and also cast glass in that installation called amulet. Seahorses, glass eel, other stuff is print, how it is made in studio. And then these photographies, I like to combine. This is source for inspiration to any next object, artwork, and how it can be made. So go quickly combining the performances with artworks and make totally different feeling of that what happened in nature and artwork in one. And my performance activities happen mostly countryside, and I involve my family. This I involved my mother, and this project went throughout one summer. So starting in springtime, you see these trees, so leaves is April. In summertime, I convinced my mother to take the same white dress which I took, and so that's the relationship between generations. Still in progress, it's not done yet. Another source of inspiration, again, is seaside and pine cones and small wooden sticks, which is such a good thing to meditate and to relax. And I collect them. No one really can resist not to do this because they are so interesting and inspirational. And so I also collected some, and these are my so photos from performances, this experiments, how it can be used and what that would mean. And
These are against a green screen, right?
yeah. No, yeah, the idea is to develop video project. That's about it. Then this is Julia in the winter, and now this, it was full moon like today, but in November, cold, and next performance art also. That, and I could show the last video. 30 seconds, only. So. I could go and on about all this. We have so many short videos. And the, what I do in English, what is it?
needle point.
Yeah. This is made from glass. That's
The needle, right?
the needle is made from glass, and I'm sitting in this old window for a long time and creating a star. Create a box. This that way.
Ethnographic symbol.
That's ethnographic, I think. It's many cultures. That's it. Oh, this. Thank you.
Yeah.
My
Thanks.
patience. Oh my God.
I don't know, is there any questions? Yeah.
The name of the book with space.
The
Purpose of space, I think.
name of the book that I mentioned, that